Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The views and opinions of the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward, never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the hit back with Natasha Black. It's the hit back with Natasha Black. It's the hit back with Natasha Black. It's the hit back with Natasha Black.
Good afternoon, Bahamas, and welcome to the Hit Back. I'm your host, Natasha Black. It is a beautiful day here in the 242. I hope that you are doing well, taking care of yourself, and living your best life today. I want to say hello, to everyone. To everyone who's joining us today. Someone says, I love the Minister of National Security. Not, I love Nahaja, great show, best show ever. No, I love the guest who's coming on board. Boy, I tell you, what a time to be alive. What a time to be the host of a show and all y'all want are the guests. But that's why I'm smart enough to bring the guests on. It's a beautiful day here, y'all. It's a beautiful, rainy, cloudy day in New Providence. I'm thinking since the Bahamas is kind of big and small all at the same time, I'm just going to assume everywhere is cloudy too, because I'm just going to act that ignorant. And so the whole Bahamas is having a cloudy day. So it's a pea soup and dough day, right? But stay off the carbs. Easy on the sugar. Easy on the sugar, everybody. Just easy on the sugars. Apparently our bad health is big business. Hospitals are expanding. It's only 400,000 of us, man. These hospitals got 4 and 5 wings. Apparently, corned beef is not doing well for everyone in country. Just want to throw that out there. So let's find a way, to stay healthy. Get yourself in a good frame of mind, a good, healthy frame of mind. Now everybody wants to say they love me, right? Now all of a sudden, the love is back after the Minister of National Security. Boy, I tell you, I love y'all too. I want to say hello again. Special shout out to Miss Tamara Munka over there at St. John's College. She's the vice principal of my girls' school. I want to say hello. I got a chance to meet her today, and I just was a thrill to. Sita says breezy down here in Ragged Island. That's what I'm talking about. How are you doing in Ragged Island, Sita? How is the solar panels working out? Are they connected yet? Are they really powering Ragged Island? I would like to know. Keep me informed. I'd like to know that joint. Okay, so we got a good show for you today. Of course, Minister of National Security Wayne Munroe will be joining us at the 5 o'clock mark. Why I want that? Because I wanted the full audience to be here. We're getting into the cars, all of that good stuff, that you would be a part of that conversation to find out more. We know that today, and I just wanted to bring this here before I get to my guests, the man and woman were charged in connection with baby Bella's death, and they were denied bail today. So that's a whole conversation that we're going to have with the Minister of National Security, among other topics. And I'm looking forward to that conversation for sure. So that's going to be it. Now, I want us to move into something that is very important to me. Before all of this thing with Guardian, I was just minding my own business and just really aggressive when it came to our natural resources. And when I say aggressive, I kind of stumbled into it. It just was something that annoyed me. And with my good friend Prescott Smith, myself, Larry Bowlegs, Suzette Scott, we became founders of the organization in 2018 called the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation. The function and the purpose of that foundation is to, one, allow all Bahamians to know what assets we have when it comes to our natural resources. Whether you believe there's any or not, we believe that it is our duty to find out the information that has normally been withheld from us for far too long. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that we believe that it is incumbent on all of us to know what we have, the resources that we do have, the value of it, the limestone in Ragged Island, Mayaguana, the limestone in Mayaguana, Ragged Island, all those areas that is being, mined and sold right? We all know and heard about the aragonite and all of the lines in Grand Bahama. But what about our forestry, the fisheries? What about the impact of it? And all of these things matter to us. So when we talk about the environment, we talk about sustainability as well. When we talk about natural resources, we must think about sustainability. It isn't all about scoop and sell. It isn't all about that. What matters is how long can we stay in this space? How long can we take care of our environment? How long can we maximize the potential of our environment, our natural resources? Is there a monetary value to the blue holes? The world travels to Dean's Blue Hole in Long Island. And mind you, when I did that thing with the cruise ship, there was a lot of buses going into a very weird terrain, a very weird. If you've never been to Dean's Blue Hole, you realize that I don't think we were meant to go there as long as the pathway is, and hundreds of people trying to go there at the same time. It is definitely something where, it is supposed to be this well-kept secret. So I don't know if mass tourism is for it, but it's a way to monetize it. All in all that said is, of course, we know that the government went away. All of the world leaders went to COP26, right? Went to COP26 to go and talk about climate change, and a topic that we as Bahamians, we don't discuss. We don't discuss climate change. Climate change feels very airy-fairy. Something that, hippie white folk talk about in their sleep. Like they go out and they buy coffee. They wear, what do you call those shoes? Crocs. I have Crocs, by the way. And you feel like that's that topic. But no, this is something that is very global, and a lot of us are discussing across the world. And so it is important to understand what it is and why is it important to us. And we're not major polluters. I want to bring, though, the CEO and chairman of the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation, Aj Cunningham. And Aj is the guy that gets the job done for us. Aj is the man who's now taken the idea from its infancy stage and bringing it into adulthood so that the foundation can begin to really show its roots in the country through different initiatives. So Aj, I want to welcome you before I welcome a lot of our guests one who's in Glasgow right now, Glasgow, Scotland at COP26, and another one who'll be talking about wave energy and how we can capitalize on these bits of technology. Aj, quickly your introduction before we go to break, and then we'll bring on Elon.
Yes, thank you, Nahaja, for having me, and welcome Bahama Land. I'm excited. Again, I'm Aj Cunningham, Chairman and Chief Executive of the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation. COP26 is ending tomorrow. We have some wonderful people I found that I would like to really, where the rubber meets the road, let's talk about what we can do in the Caribbean, what we can do in the Bahamas specifically. The words you will come across is climate adaptation, climate mitigation. And I guess we'll talk about what those two words means and what's the distinction and how that impacts us as individual citizens. So I look forward to this opportunity to also hear and learn from them and make this contribution. Thank you, Nahaja.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Aj Cunningham, and we're going to meet a young man from Barbados, but he represents the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center. Plus, he's a doctor. These young doctors, man. I mean, he looks like he's 5. No insult. Men, normally, if I said this to a woman, she would be all flattered. Men, I'm not sure. When you say, oh, you look so young, I'm not sure. So I might have offended him. I'm not sure. But he's just wonderfully young looking. I'm just going to run out with that. But he's very, informed, educated, and very much a leader in his field when it comes to climate change. Very proud of this Caribbean brother. So we're going to be back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Let's talk a bit about climate action. What does it take for us? What are we supposed to be doing in the Caribbean to move the country forward in this discussion? Aj Cunningham joining me from BNRF. And when we come back, Dr. Elon Cadogan. We'll be back.
What happened to you? You look like you lost your paycheck.
Man, I just realized I got scammed out of a bunch of money. They said I won this contest and just needed me to send them some money so I could collect. I needed to expedite something. Or was it to smooth the process?
Man, you're smarter than that. Protect yourself against scams and fraud by following these tips. If you know you didn't enter a competition, you can't win. Never pay to receive a cash prize. If you're being asked, you're being scammed. Check trusted internet sites for verification of information given to you. Do not give your banking details to people you don't know. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Monitor your bank account regularly for any questionable transactions. Get more information at getmoneysmartbahamas.com.
Do you want to travel this holiday season? Don't want to miss out on those doorbuster deals? Haven't gotten your COVID-19 vaccine yet? The Johnson & Johnson vaccine may be just what you need. It's one and done and fully vaccinated. For now, just one jab of this vaccine and 2 weeks later, you're fully vaccinated and ready to shop. This message has been brought to you by the Ministry of Health and this radio station.
With BTC Business's new smart solutions powered by super fast, reliable broadband, you'll feel like there are more versions of you working for you. From website design, development, and digital marketing to promote your business, 24/7 business class support to cloud solutions, security, and more. Multiply your growth today.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's a hit back with the hash of black. It's a hit back with the hash of black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Don't forget, 5 o'clock, we have the Minister of National Security joining us on the show, Wayne Munroe QC. And also tomorrow at the top of the show, we've got the Minister of State for Economic Affairs. That's Minister Halkitis. Michael Halkitis will be joining us at the top of the show tomorrow. But you know, I'm ready to talk economics. I'm ready to talk about the income of the country. But in the meantime and in between time, I've got some wonderful guests joining me. I've got Aj Cunningham from the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation and Dr. Elon Cadogan joining us as well. Elon and Aj, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
Welcome to the show, Elon.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us. I know you're in Glasgow, Scotland right now at COP26. I know the time is late. It's probably after 9. Is it after 9 or 8?
Yeah, just after 9. Yeah, just after 9.
Just after 9. So it's all Aj's fault that you're talking to us so late. Our apology. Well, let's talk a bit about climate action. Dr. Cadogan, you represent the Caribbean community for climate action, Caribbean Community Climate Change Center. That's what you are representing there. Tell us a bit about that organization, that center. What is it about?
Okay, so basically the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, it organizes the region's response to, climate change adaptation and mitigation actions. And we just basically try to support the countries in, basically adapting and mitigating the effects of climate change, the negative impacts of climate change for CARICOM countries.
Yeah, what when you say adapting, what does that mean? Because adaptation means I might have needed to grow an extra leg if I was to know.
Well, I like to use the word action because sometimes there's a lot of talk about reacting to climate change and that sort of stuff. So when we talk about, I'm going to make it very, very easy, very bite-sized. So when we talk about adaptation, we normally talk about the action to manage the risks of climate change impacts, versus when we talk about mitigation now, we talk about the action to reduce the emissions that cause the climate change. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now, okay, when we talk about this, again, if you're just tuning in, and I want to give you guys a sense of who Dr. Cadogan is with us on the show. And I just make sure, because I didn't do the CV and Aj, we like to run out when we bring guests on the show, right? We only want the best guests on the show.
Indeed, of course.
So Dr. Cadogan, he holds the appointment of Research Associate in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of South Florida and Subgroup Coordinator in the Environmental Working Group of the Harvard University, Massachusetts General Hospital Center on Genomics, Vulnerable Populations, and health disparities for the human hereditary environment and health in the Caribbean initiative. Well, what a time. I said all of that and I still don't know what it means, Doc. Then we have, he's also the GCF FP060 National Project Coordinator for, and I want to make sure, for Water Sector Resilience Nexus for Sustainability in Barbados. And we're going to talk a bit about that too, and what that project is there. Dr. Cadogan holds a PhD, high commendation, and a Master's of Science degree in Environmental Engineering, and completed his postdoctoral training in polymer engineering, nanotechnology, drug delivery, and environmental toxicology. And just recently, the same project there with regard to the Water Sector Resilience Nexus for Sustainability in Barbados, Dr. Cadogan and his team, they won a prestigious, the most important award for sustainability worldwide, the Energy Globe Award for Barbados. So we're not with, and we lost Doc for a second, but we're not with anyone who isn't, a big timer. So first of all, I want to say special thank you again for Dr. Cadogan joining us on the show. So Doc, I'm glad you dropped off right when I was embarrassing you with all of those titles. So it worked out.
Okay.
Now that we've established that you are an expert in your field for my audience, right? An expert in this area of climate change in all of the facets of it. Let me ask you, as a young man, why did you choose this field? Why did you choose this field to get into? What did you see at 21 that said this is the area that I want to go?
Well, basically, I'm glad how you answered the question. You know why? Because you asked me what did I see, and being from Barbados and I just love the beaches, and spending a lot of time on the beaches, you realize that something is different. I know that most of us in the Caribbean would obviously know about the seaweed that was impacting most of our beaches, and I said, okay, why is this happening? What can we do as citizens? To stop this from happening, and then when you do some research, you realize, okay, this is because of climate change. And then you start to see a lot more evidence of the negative impacts of climate change all around you. So basically, it's just by looking around, I realized that, as a young person, if we don't do something about this, we will not have a future. And that's it. Simply put, this is something that requires attention.
When you say it requires,
that's the reason why I got into it.
Yeah, and I'm happy you said that, because it is something that requires attention. And your prime minister came and made a huge splash, as she always does at these world events. Our prime minister, we're very proud to say, was quoted by Bloomberg, and he did a few TV shows. So that's us. We're very proud. But there's this demand by small, island developing states that we get the attention of the world. What do we need to be doing, Dr. Cadogan? What do we need to be doing? What should we be asking for? And then you go there with the 5 C's, your 5 C's. What are you guys asking for?
Well, I guess answer the first question first. I think it's more than attention that we need. Because yes, these larger countries and developed countries who contribute a lot more to the the increase in the temperature. Right now, there's this study published by University of Oxford, which has us about plus 1.237 degrees above the 1980 temperatures. So it is pretty important that we not only get the attention, but we also get action. From these persons, these countries who are, basically contributing so much to the greenhouse gases emissions, So it is more than just talking, and more than just awareness. We need climate action. And I'm a big advocate for climate action, and not only climate action, but climate action now. And really and truly, when, persons go travel to these various COPs, right now we're having COP 26 here in Glasgow, we need action. Yes, they are aware of these things. There are several studies published, and climate change isn't a hoax anymore, is a fact. And then if these persons, they travel to the Caribbean, they travel to all the cities worldwide, they will see that this is happening. And you know what? I saw a picture on Monday when it was here at COP, and what really, I wish I had a picture to show you guys. It was a cemetery that was being lost to the ocean,
In
and that
Trinidad, eh?
really,
I think I saw that too.
yeah, that was. I think it was in the one that I saw was, I think it was Belize, right?
Okay.
And you know what was striking about that is because it's not only about the youth and the future, right? But it's also about the past, our ancestors. To imagine that, a cemetery is almost being lost to the ocean because of the increasing sea level rise. I mean, you think that your final resting place would be, certain, but then you have these, being lost to the sea. Basically, the cemeteries are at the coastline. So these are some really, really huge issues that require attention and action from those persons. And we say the polluter pays, but really and truly, it's time.
Yeah. When we say they pay, this is one of the concerns here for me, Dr. Kadagan. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about climate action, Caribbean nations like ours. We have Dr. Elon Kadagan here with us live from Glasgow, Scotland, representing the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center there in Glasgow, 5Cs representing for us, Aj Cunningham, CEO and chairman of the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation. And then we'll have also from California, Daniel Petkovich. And I hope, Daniel, I said it right, Petkovich. I feel like I did say that like an ace, but Elon knows I've screwed up names all day. But when we say that the countries must pay, Doc, when we say that the countries must pay, is money enough? Is money enough to help us from sinking? If they pay, but we're not reducing carbon emissions, then is that enough?
Well, I think that that's when you have to approach this really like a emergency surgery, like a triage approach, right? We're not only asking countries to, put the money where their mouth is, but we're also asking them to stop emitting these greenhouse gases and try to reduce, methane has had a lot of attention at COP26, persons trying to reduce the methane emissions. And, we need to ensure that globally we try to keep that 1.5, 1.5 to stay alive is important, because I spoke to some persons from Africa, some West African states, and they were saying, well, you know what, hey, we are already at the point where our temperatures have surpassed 1.5 degrees. I was talking to this lady, and I'm going to call the name now, where she was saying that they can't sit in the sun, they can't sit outside in the shade for more than 5 hours or so, because they run the risk of being dehydrated. So it's just more than talking globally about 1.5, because some places already gone past 1.5. We need those persons to really do the action. As I say, climate action now. Sometimes the talk, yes, this is a talk show, but sometimes we need you need to stop with the talk and let's do some action. Honestly, and action now.
Let me ask you this question before I bring on our next guest. I think there was a country or somewhere was mass purchases of electric vehicles. I'm trying to remember. I was just reading it last night. I don't know if it's a major company or country. They're trying to do this mass purchase of electric vehicles. Probably not a country. Probably this big company.
It was a car company. I think it was Hertz.
And no, not that one, because I know they changed their fleet to it. But nonetheless, I'll remember it probably when it's too late anyways. So here is the question that I have, though, and someone asked this question here. Would you advise the mass purchase of electric vehicles? And that leads me to my other question, which is it fair that countries like ours are being asked to mitigate? We've been told, oh, stop, using plastics. But it ain't our plastics that's going into the sea. Not necessarily. We need to, cut back on energy, get solar. We're the poorest of the countries and asked to shift in technology. Is it fair what is being even required of us when major countries aren't doing their jobs?
That one's for me, or Azure?
Yeah, that was definitely for you.
That's me. Okay. That was a lot. We can start with you one. I think the question was about the mass purchase of electric vehicles.
Yeah.
I don't want to answer the question directly, but what I would say is that every little bit counts. Every little bit adds up, and anything to reduce long term. I don't think about short term solutions that have a negative long term impact. I'm just saying that whatever we can do to reduce the increase the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere or greenhouse gases emissions, I would say that it would be a good move. However, it must not have any long term negative or even short term negative impacts on the environment. And I think and that's why we don't really want to answer the question directly, because there's a lot more that goes into just saying yes, purchase electric vehicles mass, because there's a lot more that has to be discussed, right? And every country's situation is obviously going to be different, right? So I hope I was able to get shed a little bit light on that before answering the question directly, because it really depends on the country's situation.
Yeah. And then when we talk about what is the weight of the burden of mitigation on small countries, what would you say? Obviously, it directly affects us, but how much of this weight should be shifted on us?
Well, if you really think about Caribbean countries and cities in general, and I mentioned in the beginning of the show that mitigation is the action to reduce emissions that cause climate change. We are not the major producers. We are not the major ones who are actually contributing on the global scale to climate change. And really and truly, even if we did, even if we did, try all these mitigation actions, I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things, you asked the question about shifting. I think really and truly, the heavy industrialized countries, those are the ones who really have to put, some elbow grease and really get done. And instead of talking about it again, just do it. Reduce those emissions, because I'm going to also encourage my Caribbean brothers and sisters also to do the same, but in a global scheme. The persons who really and truly have that high emissions, they should be the ones that really, really consider what they're going to do. And really not only pledge, but actually do it and set targets. I mean, that's what COP is about: setting targets. I mean, it's to set targets globally and also try to achieve them.
I want to ask this quick question before I let you go, Doc, because I know the time is late there. This last one here, I don't know if this relates to climate change, but a group in the Bahamas received a reward from London to produce coral reefs through some science method. My question is, should we be constructing what I call man-made corals, or should we be protecting the corals that exist to grow? Or is it a mesh of both? Are we preserving and creating? What do you think of that, Dr. Cadogan?
Okay, I'll just give my opinion. I'm going to say that I'm not an expert in this area, but I guess approach from a macro perspective. All right. Three things, actually. Well, one is, yes, we can do the best we can to physically protect the coral reefs. But in terms of the temperatures and the chemical composition, temperatures are global. So as a Caribbean country, our Caribbean countries are being in the Caribbean, again, goes back to, the persons who pollute, who produce these emissions and contribute to climate change. There's only so much that we can do. So I can't understand why persons would want to, culture these coral reefs in the lab and then try to put them into the environment, because really and truly, we have to adapt. And if we have to adapt, we have to ensure that our environment also has the capacity or has the ability to adapt. So if it is that we need a coral, and again, I'm not speaking as an expert directly on this topic, I'm just speaking generally. If it is that there are some species of coral that are better adapted to an increase in temperature or an increase in the turbidity of the waters, then maybe that is something that we should be doing. Because if it is that we just don't do anything at all, then you know what, they're going to disappear.
Yeah. Dr. Cadogan, thank you so much for your time, all the way there in Glasgow, Scotland, representing the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center. Someone asked, is this Dr. Barbadian? Yes, he's Barbadian. He's a proud Barbadian man. Thank you so much, Doc. We appreciate you. And when we come back, you're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Ash Cunningham stays with me. We've got someone all the way from California joining us as well, too. We're talking about wave energy. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black.
We are working to protect our country, our people, and our livelihoods so that we can move forward. The vaccine is safe. The vaccine is easy. The vaccine is essential for our recovery. If we want to rebuild our economy, if we want to get back to our jobs, if we want to get back to our lives, our families, we must do this together.
At Fidelity, the holidays are all about family, spending time with loved ones, and being thankful for the little things in life. Worrying about bills should be the last thing on your mind, especially during the holidays. Let Fidelity help you get your bills under control. Fidelity can also get you started with a real savings plan that actually pays you interest. The only thing you need to think about is what you will do with the savings in your pocket this Christmas. Now that's what I'm talking about. Fidelity Bank is here for you this holiday season because you are family, and family is important to us.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Today, we have two great segments to this show. We're talking climate action at the beginning of the first hour of the show. Second hour of the show, though, of course, Minister of National Security, Wayne Munroe QC. A lot to talk about with him there. I want to bring back my good friend, Ash Cunningham, CEO of the one and only Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation, and always the guy who I can always count on to give me some great guests. And I will also welcome to the stage. You know, this is like we really have a stage, but I want to welcome a gentleman who I got to meet. I got to meet with you, Ash, yesterday. Dan Petkovic. Petkovic. I don't know what is going on with me today. Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. But before you say anything, Dan, my friend Aj, he wants to do the honors.
Yes, so as Dan come on, I just want to segue from Elon's Dr. Cadogan's statement. And I want to first bring the Bahama Land attention. Several years ago in 2013, the government created the National Energy Policy. Now, for the years 2013 to 2033, there has not been much action taken on that policy, however, but in that strategic framework, there are 6 components that are critical to today and to tomorrow that's important. One of those, which I'll just go with number 3, which states is the development of renewable energy sources such as solar, ocean energy, biofuels, waste to energy, and wind. But more importantly of that, when you think about climate mitigation and climate adaptation, the Honorable Prime Minister Philip Davis, at his October 27th of this year, in the 2021-2022 supplemental budget statement, he stated that climate adaptation and mitigation finance are mechanism for allowing countries such as ours to transition to renewable energy and to build resilience. In addition to that, he went on to say that there are some exciting developments underway, and he looked forward to reporting back to the Bahamian people after his meeting in Glasgow. So when we think about forward-looking, and you asked the question earlier, Nahaja, climate mitigation, climate adaptation, why should we as a small island developing state take on this burden of mitigation when we are not the one who's creating the problems? And yet we have to implement climate adaptation, which is how we adjust our behavior and our attitudes toward climate change that will make an impact. So when I think about the mirror of those 2 statements, I think about CalWave and Dan Pekovic, who's the chief operating officer of that organization, I met the CEO several weeks ago, and through that process, we had engagement. I saw the work they were doing, some preliminary work around waves, and they're doing some great things out in California, some test case. But I thought it would be a good idea for the Bahamian people to really to understand what this forward-looking world can be. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I think we cannot stick with business as usual, and we need innovation to be in the place. And so I think Dan will be a good person to kind of talk to us about that.
Yeah, and I want to welcome him without any further ado, Dan Pekovic. Dan, thanks so much for joining us again. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, buddy. CEO of CalWave.
Yeah, happy to be here. Absolutely. Thank you for the request.
Well, Dan, we spoke yesterday. We had a lengthy discussion just talking about what the company CalWave is. And I want you, as brief as you can, give us a general idea for my audience who has no idea of the company CalWave, no idea about the major project that you've gotten to provide and really to start this process of wave energy with your government in the U.S. Give us an idea and background of what you're doing at CalWave.
Sure. I mean, we initially came out of UC Berkeley with some new technology to harness the energy in ocean waves. And our device is what's called a submerged pressure differential style device. So it actually operates, fully submerged. And as the waves pass over top, it moves in relative motion to the seafloor. And then we're able to translate that relative motion, into power. And, in the graph here, it shows that the waves are very consistent and predictable, and they can offset wind and solar very well, in order to kind of give a more broad spectrum of renewable energies and allow for broader penetration. And for smaller, island states, it becomes, even more important, because it is enables to offset coming off of imported diesel fuel. So it not only is, great for the environment as far as being a much smaller pollution impact, but it also can enable energy independence and allow for locally generated, locally controlled power. And, eventually could even turn into stored power in the forms of hydrogen or other, and then, allow small islands to be energy exporting states.
Dan, folks who they're unable to see what we're showing online because they're listening in their cars. One of the things that I really thought was fascinating was that we're talking about, of course, we've heard this before, things that can harness wave energy, right? But yours is different because of how you anchor it. It's not, we always think in our country, we have hurricanes. Anything that's out to sea can be destroyed when we have major hurricanes. What makes CalWave so different from other wave energy companies?
I think our biggest differentiating factor, which is why I think we're an appropriate technology, for the Caribbean, is the storm resilience. And that is based on the device operates submerged, but it can change the depth of operation. And it also has some active features that allows it to change the geometry of the system. So in the same way that a wind turbine, when the winds get really high, it can pitch its blades, back into the wind to reduce efficiency and reduce loading. In heavy seas, our device can operate at a deeper depth. And we can kind of go underneath the power in the waves. The power in the waves really dies off exponentially as you leave the surface. So as an example, a number of weeks after we deployed in San Diego, we had the statistical equivalent of the 50-year storm, just a very unseasonal storm at the time. So, new device, but you're able to then just hunker it, as deep as you can get it and ride out the storm and not really have to be up on the surface, being thrown around in the waves.
Right now, you guys are you full? I know you said you're testing in San Diego right now. You and I, when we were talking yesterday, we were talking about how much can one of these units, how much can it power? What's the difference between the output of wave energy versus solar energy? Like those are the questions that, we tend to have over here. What is its scalability for us?
Well, and I think it's a really important point as far as, solar is very important. I think solar should be used wherever it can, but it does take up a lot of space. And when you think about the medium of waves in just the ocean, how much denser of a fluid that is than air. So it's about 60 times more dense. So you're able to produce a lot more power with a much smaller piece of equipment. The system we have in San Diego, it relatively could power 15 homes, but that's a scale modeled system relevant to a larger system that would power about 800 to 1,000 homes for a single device. And that would be roughly a 60-meter device. The one in San Diego is about 4 meters, a little bit larger.
And the 60-meter device, the 16 by 60 meters is that's about 1,000 homes. You said, I think we said yesterday, that's about 1,000 homes. So, and I look at it, right now. Then we're really in the prototype phase of it. Then are we in the prototype phase of CalWave right now?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've done many iterations of prototype testing on test benches and in wave tanks, but San Diego is really the first fully deployed ocean system, and we are looking to deploy a 100 kilowatt system, roughly 100 homes in Oregon in 2024, and that would be kind of the next larger prototype system. But it is fair to say, that right now these are prototype systems, and we're hoping in the next, couple years, we can deploy systems more commercially, but they do still need time in the water to really kind of shake out the performance and all the different details around the operations and things like that.
Have you guys tried, using like our island or other islands for prototype testing? Because I think it would be great. We're always open.
Entirely agree. I think we've had some preliminary discussions in Barbados and in some other areas about prototype pilot testing in those areas, and they're great early markets. Because of the appetite to get away from imported diesel, as opposed to some of these other areas in the mainland where they have relatively cheap other forms of energy. That here in California, solar energy is very cheap, as long as you have natural gas to help support it.
Right.
So, until California really wants to get serious about taking natural gas off the grid, it's hard to cost compete.
Yeah.
And so we think that'll be a competitive market once you start looking at solar plus storage. But that's a few more years away. In some of these small island states and rural communities, where electricity is more expensive and more challenging and creates a dependency, infrastructure. We are thinking those are much more kind of beachhead early stage markets.
Yeah. And where do you see us right now, Dan? Dan Petkovic from CalWave, COO there in California, joining us on the show. Where do you see the Bahamas in this picture? Where do you see the Bahamas in this picture of wave energy? Are we a ripe spot for it? And how do we get into this? Is it a costly initiative for us to consider wave energy? Is it something where you would say in the long run, the long game is that you can be, self-sufficient in a way? Where do you see us?
Oh, and I think Bahamas it's a great, place to look at pilots, and it's also a great place for the long term. As we mentioned, or as you discussed yesterday, the ocean environment is one of just the major assets you have down there, and to take advantage of that asset and to use it to help fuel energy independence and help reduce pollution and help mitigate climate change. I think it makes a lot of natural sense. Just the nature of where the technology is, pilot programs would need to come first, in order to really understand that area and to really understand the locations and how we would land the systems and kind of really shake out the finer details of it. So I think, an early stage feasibility study to come down and look at, where exactly we would tie into local grids, what the local grid infrastructure looks like. Smaller grids are a bit more tricky to integrate with. It's very doable, but, there's some science that has to go into how we make sure our system doesn't disrupt the grid. And, so there's a lot of details to be worked out, but they're all pretty feasible details. And then, you would be able to quickly find out where a pilot would go and what it would cost.
all of that though, Dan, I don't know. You didn't seem like you were that. You didn't give me that hope that we could make this happen. 'Cause you know what I'm thinking, Dan?
Yeah.
Our islands, especially the family islands, right? So we were told by our major energy provider, NASA, is out of the question when it comes to solar. And you know, everybody sighed. We're like, oh yeah, right. You just want to keep the gas money. We ain't into you. Blah blah blah. And then, you know, of course, the family islands, they said, oh, well, the family islands are easier. They have a lot more land mass, blah, blah, blah. But then you have something, and because I think about it, well, what happens when there's a major hurricane? What happens to the panels? What's the cost to, you know, restore those? And then I look at your program with wave energy and the ability to go below, to move and adjust your platform in bad weather is excellent, right?
Yeah,
those are good points.
Yeah, and I think the thing to add to that too is, you know, a lot of other systems need to shut down in bad weather. Like the way they protect their system is by shutting off. Like a wind turbine will totally turn out. Yeah. Whereas by going deeper, you know, we can continue to operate and continue to deliver power during those storms.
Well, that's huge. Yeah, no, we just cut off on a Tuesday. It's just a thing. Let me ask you this though. Final question, because I see we're running out of time. You mentioned something yesterday, Dan, that I thought was fascinating. That this pilot project, you guys would have to build this thing here. That's a big deal.
No, and I think like, you know, the prototype in San Diego, you know, we fabricated in sections and shipped it in containers and things like that. And for a small system, sure. But as we, you know, look at pilots and as we look at those systems, I think we also want to generate local content. You know, we definitely want to tap into the local expertise of the areas and have kind of the locals on the ground, you know, fabricating the devices, operating the devices, maintaining them, cleaning them. You know, we're a pretty small company. You know, our kind of sweet spot is the technology itself. We don't need to weld steel, you know, like that can be done a lot of places. So I think we definitely would want to kind of bring the know-how and the technology and the experience and partner with local entities to actually fabricate, build, deploy, and operate the devices.
Yeah, no, I like the thought of that already, because that gives us that level of involvement in the process of our energy as well, bringing different and new skill sets on island as well. And I like the way this sounds. Dan, I got to tell you, you know, we had this conversation yesterday and I'm a big fan already. I would love to see a prototype in country so we can get a sense of how that would work for us. Aj, before we let Dan go, final words?
No, I think it's important that from the foundation perspective, and just to let everyone know that we're for the protection, economic viability, and ecological sustainability of natural resources, of which the Bahamian citizen is the primary natural resource. And in this future, as we look forward in climate change, I think what the foundation is clear about putting practical things in place where the rubber meets the road. And we want to bring these conversations to the Bahamian people, and so we can know what's out there, so we can let our parliamentarians understand what we need to mitigate our costs and to improve our livelihoods. So I want to thank everyone. And thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, guys, Dan, thank you so much for the time, my friend, and the opportunity to share with us. We got to take a quick break. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. We'll be back right after this.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Good afternoon. I'm Tashina Robinson with your Guardian Network News headlines at 5. Here's what we're working on at this hour. Prime Minister Philip Davis today affirming his government's commitment to improving the healthcare infrastructure throughout the Bahamas. His administration plans to build new hospitals on New Providence and Grand Bahama through public-private partnerships. The Prime Minister also foreshadowed upgrades to Family Island clinics. One business is doing its part to raise falling vaccination rates. CBS Bahamas in the Southwest Plaza will stage a vaccination drive this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Registration for the weekend event will take place tomorrow at the store from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. No appointments necessary. The initiative is supported by the Bahamas National COVID Vaccine Committee and the Ministry of Health. The government is set to test the mandatory action rescuing children operation, the Marco Alert system, on Monday over the Alive network. After the murder of 11-year-old Marco Archer back in 2011, a law was enacted allowing authorities to send notifications alerting the public to missing children, and that was dubbed the Marco Alert. And a mother and her boyfriend were refused bail in connection with the death of a high-profile killing of a 4-year-old. The pair was not required to enter a plea. They were remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until December 17th. The magistrate set an early court date due to the, quote, national concern surrounding the death of little Deonia Bella Walker. And with that, we wrap up your headline news at this hour. I'm Tashina Robinson. Stay tuned. AP News is up next.
Do you know you can get your business cards designed and printed for as low as 18 cents a card? If it's a poster you want, you can pay as little as $6 a square foot. If your print needs are short or long run, digital printing, wide format, or print consultation, call the best. Call Print Masters. Print Masters' goal is to provide its clients with the highest level of personal, professional service at an affordable price. Our state-of-the-art technology also makes working together efficient and easy. Laminations, business cards, flyers, posters, window and floor decals are just a few of the digitized print services offered at Print Masters.
Let Print Masters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located in the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
Coronavirus update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished mixed. The Dow down 158 points. California is getting ready for what could be a winter pandemic surge.
Governor Gavin Newsom says there are some concerning signs. Hospitalizations are creeping up in some areas, including Los Angeles County. It wasn't long ago that California had the nation's lowest COVID case rate, but now it's 16th, says the governor. So California has started pre-positioning equipment and locking in contracts with temporary healthcare workers. State health officials say as the weather gets colder, people will stay inside more, and there'll be more holiday mingling at a time when vaccine and natural immunity will begin to wane unless more people get booster shots. I'm Rita Foley.
The Delta variant is driving up virus hospitalizations in the Mountain West and fueling disruptive outbreaks in the North, a worrisome sign of what could be ahead this winter in the U.S. I'm Ed Donahue.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the Hit Back with the hash of black. It's the Hit Back with the hash of black. It's the Hit Back with the hash of black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's now that time, 5 o'clock today. We've got the Minister of National Security, the one and only Wayne Munroe QC. All of a sudden, I was going to say senior. I don't know where that came from. But I want to welcome my good friend and now Minister of National Security, Wayne Munroe. Minister Munroe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nahaja.
Listen, it's a pleasure. It's the first time I have you on the show since you're minister now, and all protocol must be due. It's good to see you. You've been busy, my friend. You've been busy. You came out of the gates, out of the blocks. You come out and you started working right away, day one. I've got to ask you this. Is there anything different from what you expected to what has been reality since taking the post of Minister of National Security?
Listening to what person said, there was a very bad reputation put on public servants. And so far in this ministry, I've found hardworking public servants. So that is a pleasant surprise from what is sold to the public about the work ethic of public servants.
No, I found that to be the case as well. We got some brilliant people in the public service, just for the record. All right, Minister, welcome again to the show. We've got a lot of topics to discuss today. And number one, for many and almost if not all of us, of course, is this, and we understand sub judice and all of that good stuff, but the conversation of protecting our children and the issue of crime in general in country. But of course, Baby Bella's story is before us, right? As a constant, as an alarming reality of our behavior with children. What you confirmed this week, I think today or today, I think what was confirmed with you was that Baby Bella, her medical report shows that it was blunt force trauma. Just for the record, one more time, explain to folks, what did we see with her, the medical report on the cause of death for Baby Bella?
Well, as announced by the commissioner, it was blunt force trauma that resulted in ribs being broken, internal organs being ruptured, and bleeding into a body cavity. What was not included was any sign of sexual assault. And so it was a horrific, what must have been a horrific physical attack on a young child.
And that's an understatement, that it leads to death. And I think now that leads to this next question of the issues of abuse and dealing with children, sexual or not, physical abuse, this whole issue of societal ills. You've had some statements since becoming minister talking about, when we talked about crime, as the minister, beseeching parents, beseeching the community to let's deal with the social ills. Do you find that this is a different approach that you have now than versus when you were out in as a layman, as a QC? Is this a different approach for what you would normally have said prior, now calling on the community to resolve some of these vexing issues?
That has always been my position. It's the only sensible position you can take. Publicly, I've always made it clear that there are no silver bullets in the criminal justice system, that the criminal justice system only deals with the failures. And I've been saying that now for 30 odd years. And what that is speaking to is the fact that by the time you get to be captured by the court system, by the time you start talking about prison, the person is a failure in terms of he or she is a criminal. And unless you're interested in cataloging criminals, to prevent it, you have to intervene before that happens. That has always been my position. Personally, that's why my ministry at my church is related to altar servers who are generally young, the young children of the church.
One of the first things you did when you came in as Minister of National Security was you stopped what we would call the perp walk, right? This walk with folks being shackled and going into court. And that had some pushback by the media and by the general public. And some have said that this is a result of you being a defense attorney, always looking out for the alleged perpetrator. But I want to get a sense from you, why did you decide to change that as a course of action when we talk about going into court?
Well, I think I did come out and say I did not direct it. I was pleasantly surprised that they did it. But they likely did it because one of the things that being liability by the government from the police and immigration, who are the biggest source of liability. So if they were directed to do it previously, that may be why it was done, but I certainly didn't direct them to stop doing it. I think them stop doing it accords with what is the law as I understand it. But as much as I would like to take credit for it, it is not something that I directed to happen.
Yeah.
Because as a defense lawyer, We love the perp walk because if your client has not been on an identification parade, he can't be identified in court once he's been paraded in front of the public. And so that is how, when I used to practice the criminal bar, you would prevent dark identifications by telling the judge it's pointless to permit it because this person was paraded in front of the cameras. Of course, they're going to point him out. I don't know why the public would think defense lawyers don't like the perp walk. When I was on that side of the bar, we love it. It stops dark identifications. And that's just a signal of how the public sometimes doesn't stop and think things through their logical conclusion, either because they lack facts or because they just don't think it through to its logical conclusion. Just like they think defense lawyers don't like harsh penalties. Of course, anybody defending someone likes harsh penalties because it affects the price of the case. So, these things that people come up with just often make me smile if you were to think about it.
Yeah, and it was interesting that you said that, because I was going to ask you, even with this case with baby Bella, some of the pushback has been, well, when you spoke about it, and I think you mentioned it at some point, where when it came to the sexual offenders list or registry that we as the public are asking for, some part of it, and I don't want to misquote you, but what was seemingly the understanding of it by the masses was that you did not necessarily see that list as being as effective as we think it would be, the general public, that we think it would be. And then you heard the pushback. Well, of course, if he would say that, he's a defense attorney and he's now still defending all of these criminals. I have to ask you, Wayne, what do you say to that? Minister Munroe, my apologies.
Well, I said something that has been said in every country with an operative sexual offenders registry. It doesn't have the efficacy that people think about. Just think about the case of Marco Archer. Let us assume that Kofi Goodman had been on a sexual offenders register. It would have shown him resident in Cable Beach. Marco Archer was abducted from Grants Town. So that would have done Marco's family precious little good. And the problem is, and this is something that will come with the education of the public on the sexual offenders register when we have full rollout, is you have to understand its limitations. Because if it makes you feel safe, and in feeling safe you let down your guard, you will have done your children a disservice. You cannot feel safe, for instance, if you're an Eleuthera, that you know that there's a sexual offender registered in New Providence, because so long as he doesn't travel for longer than 7 days, he can be on Eleuthera for 4 days. So the public must come to understand the effectiveness or otherwise of the register, because you must understand the tools that you have. At the very same interview, what I did say is that I would have thought what was more effective would have been something that was suggested by the Parole and Reentry Committee in 2016, its 2016 report, which is for the actual electronic monitoring of dangerous criminals after they've been released from serving their sentences. I would think that it is a lot more effective if a criminal who's released knows that we know where he is 24 hours a day, rather than us knowing he is on a list that he has to report to a center once a year. This nonsense about lawyers having any affinity with crime seems to suggest that we think we're immune to it. My colleagues have been the victim of sexual offenses against property, and one of them, notably, was the victim of home invasion and having been held at gunpoint, him and his family. And so the public really needs to stop that silliness, because it's just a function of the system that we operate. If nobody were to represent these folk, they would never go to trial, and eventually they would be released from custody. And so we're very serious about telling the public, this is the use that you can make of this tool. do not overemphasize what this tool can do for you. Understand that when we tell you that this person was released and is living in New Providence, that doesn't stop them being on Eleuthera, on Grand Bahama, in Inagua. And so that's just the issue that arises with the register. Most sexual predators do not hunt near where they live. Most of them, for obvious reasons, hunt places that cannot be easily tied back to them.
And so then, if you're just tuning in, Wayne Munroe, Minister of National Security, joining the show. But here's the thing, because interestingly, I have a defense attorney, a good friend of mine, who's tagging me on the side. He said, listen, I agree with the Minister of National Security's position, right? I agree with his position. And the reason why I agree with it is that he said the offenders live in the home. So the list doesn't help. You're saying that those on the list tend to hunt outside of their home, which...
No, that's a different issue. Most sexual offenses are committed by persons known to the victim.
Right.
But those aren't the people and persons are talking about, because those are generally the first-time offenses. So the date rape, the rape by an acquaintance, that sort of thing, the molestation of the child, of the woman who is in a home because she has nowhere to go. Most of those persons aren't, when you see the sentencing reports, previous offenders. What you're talking about, seeking to guard yourself against with a sexual offenses register, are persons who may be criminals, and you would come in contact with them. Now, most Bahamian people, when you look at knowing one another, so I pop up on the family island, what's the first thing they're going to ask? Who is he? Who is your people? All the rest of that. And then they get down to it. We tell you, okay, he's a criminal. He lives there, and you know him. He isn't likely to be molesting the little children. The record shows that that's generally what your friend is telling you is usually the people in your house. So when you go in looking on this list for the person who is going to be molesting your children, and you don't pay attention to everybody around your children, then that is why I say it makes you feel safe. It may cause you to let down your guard because Mr. X, who is on the list, isn't around your child, and not pay close attention to the people who have been shown to be doing these things, which are acquaintances.
I totally hear you, and it makes great sense what you're saying as well too. But I will tell you that there are a lot of folks who are like, well, what if Mr. X happens to be, Dr. J? I don't know if, Dr. J is a public figure. I need to know because I might run into Dr. J, but my child won't be around Dr. J. Maybe you get it. Maybe there's a point there.
But they'll get the list.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue is don't let that make you feel super safe. The example I give is we watch our children run around out of our sight in the Bahamas. When you go to the US, you don't let that child you don't lose sight of that child because you don't feel safe letting your children out of your sight in the US because of what we hear happens there. So yes, you will get the list. Yes, you will get notification. The point that you will be educated on is exactly what you can expect, rely on that list for.
Exactly.
You will get education as to who are the main perpetrators of sexual offenses in this country so that you can safeguard yourself and your children.
Wayne Munroe QC Minister of National Security. Wayne Munroe joining us. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. We will be back right after this.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
We are working to protect our country, our people, and our livelihoods so that we can move forward. The vaccine is safe. The vaccine is easy. The vaccine is essential for our recovery. If we want to rebuild our economy, if we want to get back to our jobs, if we want to get back to our lives, our families, we must do this together.
What does Christmas mean to you? What about making a loved one's face smile bright or driving your own car? CIBC First Caribbean gives you up to 100% financing on auto loans. Apply online and let our auto financing take you places this Christmas. Visit CIBCFCIB.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
It's the hit back with Natasha Black. It's the hit back with Natasha Black. It's the hit back with Natasha Black. It's the hit back with Natasha Black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Joining us, Minister of National Security Wayne Munroe QC, on the show with us today. So, Minister Munroe, just as a comment, someone says Bahamians just want the sexual offenders registry just so that they can have revenge. That's an interesting point.
Well, that's an interesting thing, because I've said today at a presser that one of the easiest ways for somebody to get off the register is for them to show that it is causing them actual harm. So, that the purpose is not to expose people to violence. It's to permit people to safeguard themselves. And you can, in fact, apply to a judge to be removed from the register. And who's going to guess what is going to be a compelling reason for a judge to remove you from the register? So, people just have to understand how to make proper use of things, or you get to lose it.
Yeah. Someone asked a question: is it possible to retroactively place someone on the sexual offenders list?
Now, this is an interesting thing. The law was actually brought into force from the 24th of July, 2019. But I get the impression from my briefing today that we weren't really requiring reporting until one chap was released sometime recently, and we may not have been compiling the list. So the act was passed in 2014, was brought into effect in 2019. And it is now in 2021 that we're looking at going live. So a very live issue for me will be looking at the legislation and seeing, are we able to say for the people between July 2019 and now, to get them on the register, and their obligations like listing your primary residence, your secondary residence, get that material now on the basis that the law was enforced from 2019. And so we can force you to do it because it's not retroactive application of the law. The law was enforced, just that we never asked you to report. So that is something I'm going to have a look at. I'm looking forward to that, because that has legal implications in terms of using something I spent 30 years to develop.
Sounds interesting.
legal acumen. As Minister of National Security, I don't get to practice in
I know.
anymore. So if I get an opportunity to look at a legal problem, it's something that I would look forward to. So that is a legal issue that I would look forward to and discuss with the legal team here at the Ministry of National Security.
Minister Munroe, look, there was a statement made by one of your colleagues, your cabinet colleagues, Minister of State Lisa Ramming, and she was talking about how we in the region are number one in rapes. In the region, number one, the Bahamas, as small as we are. And I was curious, do we have a sexual violence unit? Do we have a unit that is just for sexual crimes committed against anyone, men, women, children? Do we have a unit especially for that? Is there any intentional program or program or anything that will help to stem this tide? Because it's an unfortunate statistic that we're number one in.
Well, there is a sexual offenses unit in the Central Detective Unit, and there has been for some time. But again now, by the time you arrive at the sexual offenses unit of CDU, the offense has happened. Mm-hmm. And it cannot be that we want to be number one in solving sex crimes. It's that we want to be a lot better at preventing them. Mm-hmm. Anything that comes within the agencies in my ministry, the police, the BDOCs, the prison, relates to dealing with people who have already transgressed. And so having a sexual offense, there's a sexual offenses unit in CDU, while you would say it's resource driven, it's specific. Sadly, it will only be dealing with the offense that has been committed. We need to spend more effort in getting people not to do these things. To tell young men that, and rape is a crime of violence now, in my estimation, because of it that's what it's about.
That's what it is.
It's a crime of violence.
It destroys a soul. It destroys a life. It is tantamount to its own level of attempted murder in my eyes. It is a grave ill. So and the point in which you're going to, and I love that, is prevention. But I want to ask, even in its conclusion of case solving, allegations of it, are we? I mean, we don't hear many cases where these are. If we're number one in the region, I don't know we hear of many of these cases coming forward, going into trial. Is there some sort of system by which we try not to make them public, to give us a sense, or not to create a sense of worry or concern? Because number one is concerning, but I don't feel as if we have that level of anxiety about it or conversation on it, to even be at that place of that statistic. What is our effectiveness in solving these crimes? What is our, like you said, the programming in which we discuss this?
You will find that there was a time when there was an allegation that the police didn't take sexual offenses seriously. I think the U.S. ambassador was Siegel at that time. Mm-hmm. From that day forward, I can't think of any complaint of a sexual offense that hasn't been sent to court. They do go through the court system. Some end up in convictions, some end up in acquittals. There was a proposal to schedule 2 of the 10 criminal judges as a sexual offenses court. Mm-hmm. And with the hope, I suppose, of getting them, more of them tried. The logistics of trying all of the many matters that come before our court system is a different issue. But certainly we do get them sent before the courts. As I say, most sexual offenses are committed by people known to the victim, and so discovering who they are aren't generally a big issue. A small percentage of stranger issues involve strangers. So yes, people are apprehended, there's an investigation, and you go to court, you get sent to court, and eventually it comes to trial, some of them.
Yeah, and there's a concern among citizens And actually, that's why I'm happy that you're the Minister of National Security, because I know you've heard you've heard loud concerns by clients seeking support or justice for many cases during your time as QC. So there's a bit of I know that there's awareness, and you're not coming from out of the police force. So there's also this, I would hope, center position. I'm not going to put that on you and put any words on you, but that's what many are hoping for. If you're just tuning in, Wayne Munroe, Minister of National Security. So then it brings this to bear or to mind with many, in particular myself, when I say, okay, when I look at the stage that is set, where we have cases and many Bahamians are not confident and have some concern with the structure of policing, that some, there's been all kinds of allegations where we know or we've heard, listen, I went in to make a complaint about this offense. I have one lady from Grand Bahama told me that she went and told the police that she was raped, and they sat her across from her accuser and said, indeed, is this the gentleman who raped you inside the police station? There are those sort of stories, wondering if it depends on whom it is that is the alleged perpetrator of this violent crime. The reason why I bring all of that up is, do you believe that confidence, or the confidence the Bahamian people have in policing, is sufficient enough where you say we have these systems and these units, they're effective? Do you believe that we believe that is effective? And should that matter?
Well, public confidence in any system is important. And they say a prophet is never accepted in his own land. And I think that may be the police force here may be victims of that. When they go outside of this country, they are very well respected. The account of what you would have described as sitting you across from the perpetrator is what is called a confrontation. That is a method that is used if there's an assessment that the victim is firm enough to take it, the purpose being to confront the perpetrator with the person and see what it is his reply is. If that was wrongly assessed that this person was able to withstand that, that's a different matter. My understanding is before you do a confrontation, you will find out from the victim, do you think that you can stand being confronted by this person?
That victim.
If that is not what preceded it, then that would have been a wrong application of that method. You're supposed to find out from the victim, do you think you can stand a confrontation? They'll say yes or they'll say no.
Mm-hmm. And what is the purpose of that confrontation? What are we hoping to find out?
It is to see, sometimes, in confrontations, the victim recants the story, and sometimes in the confrontation, the accused perpetrator admits it. I read a police report of it. It was actually domestic violence, where the police went to the scene. All of the persons were there, the woman, her daughter, the purported victim, the purported perpetrator, and in front of the police, she says, this man said he molested my child. My child said he molested her over this years, and the man say, oh yes, I did, I messed up. So confrontation has a number of purposes, and it's for the investigator to gauge whether it would be of any use, and before embarking on it, to gauge whether or not the victim is able to withstand it and consents to do so.
Yeah, I think it's an odd one. And like you said, you ask the victim if they can handle it. And that story, which was told to me by that victim, they weren't given that sort of choice. And subsequently, nothing happened. But, those are some of the stories that we hear. Recently, there's been videos, and not recently, this has been an issue. And you're now the Minister of National Security. These departments fall under your purview as leader of these institutions: corrections, police, Royal Bahamas Defense Force, etc. We've seen and we know of cases where we've had audio, where we've had video of what many will call police brutality. And Bahamian people are looking for that to stop, where we want to trust. that I mean, I had a young man on my show who ended up recording his own beating using his smartwatch. How is Wayne Munroe, the Minister of National Security, going to help the Bahamian people or restore that level of confidence that we're going to root out this issue? And though it may be a few, those bad apples seem to be very dominant in their activity. How do you find your role in this position to help and restore this level of trust that we need in our policing?
Well, those bad apples also bring large awards of damages against the Bahamas government. And the Attorney General did speak to that and speak to us forming a committee to deal with how do we stop it, not only because it's wrong, but because it impacts the public treasury and damages. One way that it's been addressed is the use of body cameras, and we're seeking to improve those so that when police go on duty, as many of them as we can will have body cameras. And so that records what happens. As I've said previously, that protects the officer. So if you claim he beats you and his camera shows he didn't, that's fine. I've encouraged persons who have CCTV systems at their homes, because they talk about the police coming and cutting the wires and taking the DVRs, to arrange for recording off-site. It is much easier to prove police brutality if you actually have a recording of it. Now, in some instances, you may not have a recording, but you would still be able to prove it. No police officer needs to fear being recorded if he is doing his or her job properly. And so that's one way that we hope to address it. The other way, of course, is to quite simply explain to people why they oughtn't to do it, and really depend on the people who are leading them to keep order. And if they see that their juniors are not acting properly, to call them to account.
You know, one of the things we see a lot or hear a lot is officers asking for a phone. They want your phone. If you start recording, give me your phone. Are officers allowed to take your phone if you're a bystander? Are they allowed to confiscate your phone?
No. And Chief Superintendent Lockhart, when he was in charge of the Police Court of Inquiry, came into the press and said just that. Now, what I've said when I was on the other side of the divide in terms of still being in practice is, and I say to people, you have a right to record the police and they shouldn't take your phone, but you also have to be wise. If he is a delinquent person, a deviant police officer, the fact that he shouldn't do it wouldn't stop him doing it. So perhaps you have to be a little bit clever. You know what they say, be as wise as a serpent. And realize that, you know, perhaps you don't want to make it obvious that you're recording the person if what your objective is to capture the recording. Because if he is bent on being deviant, no, he shouldn't take your phone, but he will. So it may be that you seek to do it surreptitiously.
Wayne Munroe, Minister of National Security, joining us on the show right now. And I think that that's an interesting thing for the confidence of the people in policing, because I think that it is definitely, has eroded over the years, especially now with more and more images, you know, being available right online. You talked about the cost of it, litigation, the cost of it. Right now, how close are we to making any of punitive damages falling on the individual officer if found guilty? How close are we to that being a reality?
That is an issue that we will look at in the committee. You can, there is a concept, and there are some cases that it is not always that the policeman's action can be put at the feet of the state. If he's not on duty, if he doesn't do anything to purport to be on duty. So in other words, after he does his nonsense, he doesn't purport to arrest you. Because the moment that he purports to arrest you, he's purporting to carry out an official function that makes the state liable. Then yes, of course, he can be liable. There's an ability to surcharge public servants for damage that they cause to the state. But again, one has to be very careful how one does that, so you do not get individual officers second guessing should they do something least it hits them in their bank book. And so, yes, in the most egregious cases, it could be something that may be considered going forward. As they say, you have some skin in this game where if you do outrageous foolishness, you can expect for the state to come to recover it from you. But the difficulty is sometimes that if you do really outrageous stuff, you may cease to have a job with the state.
Wayne Munroe, Minister of National Security, joining us on the show. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. We will be back right after this.
With Nahaja Black, it's the Hit Back. With Nahaja Black, it's the Hit Back.
What happened to you? You look like you lost your paycheck.
Man, I just realized I got scammed out of a bunch of money. They said I won this contest and just needed me to send them some money so I could collect. I mean, to expedite something. Or was it to smooth the process?
Man, you're smarter than that. Protect yourself against scams and fraud by following these tips. If you know you didn't enter a competition, you can't win. Never pay to receive a cash prize. If you're being asked, you're being scammed. Check trusted internet sites for verification of information given to you. Do not give your banking details to people you don't know. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Monitor your bank account regularly for any questionable transactions. Get more information at getmoneysmartbahamas.com.
So I come to work today, meet my coworker in front of the computer crying. AC sky high, you know, but she's sweating. I ask her what happened. Apparently, she ordered some stuff online, but she threatened with this VAT increase. I told her I cannot guarantee she won't feel the pinch of the increase, but I can guarantee low rates on her shipping fee from airborne freight and cargo services. Then she can ask me if I'm sure they still will give her low rates in spite of the increase. I ask her what but that she don't understand. If she look at the alphabet, she will see A is A, B is B, C is C. That don't change. 1, 2, 3. I give the answer. Bye-bye.
Call Airborne Freight and Cargo Services at 377-0450 today.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Joining us, special guest, Minister of National Security, Wayne Munroe QC, joining us. Minister Munroe, I want to just, again, thank you for joining us. We got a lot of questions from our audience, and I want to get to a few of them if it's possible. Someone asked, why does the police, or why does it seem that the police and the system laugh at men who report getting raped from a woman?
Yes, I've had reports that in fact happens, and it's probably societal in nature because we don't see women as aggressors as far as that's concerned. You would hear things if you have a older woman taking advantage of a younger child that the boy should be happy and all of that. It's a societal thing, a form of machismo where we don't think men can be raped by women, but they can.
Yeah. And is there, and I guess for me, Minister Munroe, is that are we intentional with our level of training so that all issues and instances of sexual violence against another human being is addressed with levels of high intention and anxiety? Because again, number one in the region, and issues of domestic violence against in country is high. I'm wondering, do you feel as if your ministry, the policing, all aspects of it are alert or aware of how serious these issues are in country for us? The abuse of children, the abuse of women and men with sexual violence, I don't think many feel as if that we are on this level of high alert for issues that are so severe.
As I indicated, since Ambassador Siegel made his remark, it's automatic complaint. You go to court. Us being number one in the region, it may well be that people are less tolerant to it because rape is a crime that is notorious for being underreported. And so the question may be, are the women and persons making the reports in the Bahamas more aware and alert to make them? Have we encouraged people more than they have in other jurisdictions to come forward and report? Do we have support system in places that encourages reporting, whereas that may not be elsewhere? The one thing you can say about Bahamians is that if you want to fight, talk about our mothers, do something with regard our sisters or our daughters. I don't think that anyone can say that as a people we are in any way tolerant of it. The fact of the matter, as you will hear if you go to any case involving a sexual offense, the vast majority of them, is they take place usually in private. And so that is a problem, sometimes with detection and sometimes with proof of them. And so it's unfortunate that we are number one in the region, according to my colleague. The police cannot stop that in their arresting function. We are looking in my ministry, as well as in social services, at methods to address domestic violence, sexual violence. And we have a citizen security and justice program that is hoping to put the infamously debated community centers in areas, and they would be used as a hub to do training, to be alert, and to address early on these issues. I cannot stress enough that we cannot leave it until people are going to court. We would have failed by that point. We have to address how we have gone this far down this road as a people.
Minister Wayne Munroe joining us on the show. Someone asked a question, would the RBPF, Royal Bahamas Police Force, consider an independent corruptions unit similar to other countries?
We do, in fact, have a police inspectorate that was created by our Police Force Act. If I'm not mistaken, I have a briefing with them tomorrow. The reality is that they are appointed, they aren't full-time. And when I came into the ministry, I found no administrative support of that unit. They have a statutory mandate to review and have oversight of the police complaints and corruption unit. Because the reality is this, you would need investigators, correct? So if you say this has happened, you need people to investigate. And so when I meet with them tomorrow, I will, because they're suggesting an independent body, but I'll be so bold as to say they are that independent body. And we have to provide them with administrative support and what other support they need to carry out that review function.
Another question here in regard to corporal punishment in children, and I think that would be the question that I would ask. Corporal punishment, one of the issues that folks are saying, hey, listen, we've got too comfortable with beating our children, and that what we saw, of course, with the beautiful Bella is just indicative of our, desensitization to it. Well, obviously, this is murder. I don't think anybody would have sat there and allowed that to happen in their right mind if they were present, but I don't know. But is there something that you would say to, parents when it comes to corporal punishment? Is this something that is going to be a debate later down between the Ministry of National Services and social services? Do you feel as if that our comfort with this sort of discipline gives room for these levels of abuse? Because, of course, Bella is just one as the baby that we lost. But this is happening everywhere, all the time in the country.
to equate corporal punishment with physical assault that results in broken ribs is a very false analogy. And I think we have to be careful to avoid false analogies. And one and the same time, you will have people saying, our focus is on proper socialization. And some people will assert that proper discipline is a form of socialization. That if you do not teach children consequences, that is how they go far, far left. Even in my day, when I got some cut skin, it didn't arrive at cut skin. The old saying was, if you didn't hear, you will feel, which was an advertisement that Bahamian parents, certainly the ones I know, didn't, beating wasn't their initial first response to it. And so we have to be very careful that we don't make false analogies. We are asking people to properly socialize their children. Part of poor socialization is a lot of our young people grow up without any sense of consequences for any of their actions. And sometimes it's embarrassing to watch them interact with their parents. And so you have two sides of it. I grew up in a system where my parents practiced corporal punishment, yet I wasn't the victim of a lot of it because I had sufficient sense to avoid it. I listened so I wouldn't have to feel so often. And so we have to be careful to avoid false analogies. Properly disciplining a child and inflicting grave injuries on a child that could cause grievous harm and death are not the same thing.
Is there a difference if you're just tuning in, Wayne Munroe, and I know we're running out of time, so let me switch gears to this before I let you go. One of the things that you mentioned when you came in, Minister of National Security, and questions that we were asking was, of course, some of the equipment that would be necessary to help with prevention. And when the government took office, we were seeing this uptick in crime. This year has been a deadly year for us in recent years. And we were asking questions. Okay, what happened to the drones? Are we going to get the cameras? Is the CCTV system working? How is the monitoring of persons on parole, out on bail? Where are we with regard to equipment, to the ability to fight crime, where we've had so many young men being laid to waste, children, and of course, all of this crime in country? Where are we with equipment? Are we ready to fight crime?
We are at a point further than we were previously. I had the privilege of being briefed by the technical committees of BDOCS, the Defense Force, and the Police Force today. And an example given by ACP Dames, who is from the police, is we have more camera coverage now than before. But you have some people who are so intent on killing someone that they'll do it right in sight of cameras. That's just the reality. But the issue that we seek to put is, once you get sufficient coverage, then what we're trying to have is an integrated system where, in this vexing problem of murder, you have a gunshot, shot spotted detects it, you have drones that fly to the area, you have cameras that then capture the intelligence of the surroundings, and all of this is coordinated by the real-time crime center so that you have a higher probability of catching the perpetrator, because Bahamians should make no mistake about it. We have some people hell-bent on killing other people, persuaded to do it as a living. And we have raised them as well. And I've said it before, these people who are hell-bent on killing people, who have chosen murder as a career, will either become victims of the system or victims of the street, as they themselves then are hunted down by other people who are hell-bent on exacting revenge and killing. And so a lot of the technology is to get to the point where we are certain to catch you, and so fewer people may wish to engage in the behavior.
Final question for you, Minister. What do you hope to be your legacy when you're done with your tenure as Minister of National Security? What would you like to be seen? What would you like to be your legacy in this ministry?
Well, the starting point is the ministry needs to be properly built out to do what it's designed to do. I would like to lead the agencies with a record, a history of recruiting the best, promoting the best, so that we get away from what the allegation is now. And what I would really like to be a legacy is that we have a focus in this ministry when we talk about national security, and we start to get more towards the preventative side. And so, for instance, the Citizen Security and Justice Program will have these community centers, as it were, property of the Ministry of National Security, a national security asset, the whole purpose of which is to seek to lessen the customers for the police and the prisons.
Wayne Munroe QC, thank you so much for the time, my friend. I know you're busy, and we understand that you're hard at work. But I'll save that question for another time. And when I'm sure I didn't tell you I was going to ask you that one. But I'll save that one for later, because I think that might be sub judice, and I'll save that for later. Wayne Munroe, thank you so much, my friend. Be safe. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. All right, so we're going to have a good show tomorrow, of course. Michael Alkitis will be joining us tomorrow as our special guest. The questions of abuse, because I'm hearing, oh, well, this is all because we've beaten children, we beat them to death, it's because of corporal punishment. No, training up your child in the way they should go is one thing, but abuse, which happened to Bella, maybe some of us are so used to hearing children cry because they're getting beaten next door that you don't think that the child is being beaten to death, and maybe that's a challenge. But we are not that type of people. These things, that's why they offend us so as a country, as we should never be satisfied with the results and the outcome of what happened with baby Bella. I'm hoping to hear a lot more about this, but we know that the man and the woman, they were denied parole, and I'm happy that they did. They were denied parole. Everyone have a great day. See you tomorrow. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
Black.